Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. Fantastic to have you here. We're going to be making a halberd in today's episode. Two things to note. One, we have some awesome new merchandise, like these cool tees. Look at that long sleeve one. And two, we would like to quickly thank today's sponsor. Before we jump into the video, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is Skillshare, the online so that I can get an idea of scale, so that you can get an idea of scale, and so that we can put the right piece of material in the fire to actually make it. Quarter. This is a hell of a forging project. There is a lot of material that needs to be moved, because this is a ton of steel. Just a ton of steel. I got some ideas on how we can do it.
You know what might be a good thing would be to heat up steel and hit it with a hammer.
I was actually going to start off with thinking. 4140, this would be just grand. Got another piece of 4140 over there. So we've got a ton of material options. We could work with mild steel and weld in high carbon cutting edges like you've seen us do in some recent videos. But we also have some pieces of 4140 steel here. And this chunk here, 2.5 inches round, looks like it should be enough material for us. I'm a little nervous though that we can't get this width out of it. So I'd like to upset it, but to upset it I'd have to cut the ends off, which means that basically we're in a pickle, because I'm gonna have to do something I don't want to do, which is just put this in the fire, start flattening it down, and see and hope that we can pull this width on either side out of this round piece of steel. It doesn't make sense, but we're gonna give it a go. That is an 11-pound piece of steel. Let's do it. Okay, so we had that big old ugly piece of steel. What we've gone ahead and done is we have squished it down in the process, forming some cold shuts or little cracked areas. I ground those out, which means that we now have a good block of steel ready to start isolating off material for the halberd. This right here is going to be that top spike on the halberd. We've got to isolate it down, and it's actually really helpful to do it now because I am struggling to hold on to this monstrous piece of steel. But by having broken it down and left it like this, holding on to it with a pair of tongs is now 10 times easier. So we're now going to isolate the material for the tang area, the bit that's connecting to our wooden handle. Is I'm going to establish a taper from thick here to thinner up top. So now what we're doing is we're drawing out either side of the halberd blade. That is not easy. This thing is wanting to just jump all over the place. I am hoping we have enough material, but we'll find out.
T-bone, 2 chicsilog. Kasi ano ko rin, di ba? Bale, 4 lang yung total mong T-bone.
O, bali 6 na kasi 2
Oo,
tayo.
2 tayo. Tapos 2 chicsilog pa. Yan lang.
Oh, yun lang. Boy!
Narinig mo yun?
Narinig ko. Huwag ka natakbo. Huwag ka natakbo. Huwag ka natakbo.
Oh my God! Ano yun? Wait lang!
Aso yun. Aso yun.
Aso yun, kanina pa yun.
Aso yun. Kanina pa mo yan. Kanina ba yan? Si Caspian na tayo. Kaya si Kaya.
Kanina pa namin naririnig. Kanina pa namin naririnig yun. Yung gano'n.
Nakakapa ba yung mumumal yan? Talagang mumumal siya. Relax ka lang. Aso yun.
Seryoso?
Legit aso yun. Aso yun, boy.
Kalma ka lang, boy.
Uuwi din yun. Huwag kang mumumal.
Seryoso, boy, seryoso.
Yung aso yun, boy. Yung aso yun, boy. So, ayun, nabalik tayo sa pagkain.
Itong na, boy, nakalma. Bigla ako nakaganit sa akin.
Tumayo na pala yung buko ng ano, boy.
Hindi, boy, ako kalmado ako. Kasi di ba tinanong ko sa'yo yun, boy? Narinig ko ba yun?
Oh my gosh!
This halberd is not half bad. That's not entirely the whole truth. I actually think the halberd is half bad, but I wanted to be able to say the joke. The trouble that I'm having is just manipulating the material where it needs to go. It's very difficult. Those 2 wings that we've got to throw on there require a lot of material, a lot more material than I have isolated. So we are in a pickle. And this is just the thing about forging. Unlike being able to kind of cut stuff out of a piece of sheet or something like that, or, you know, remove material to make a shape, we have to move it around. And so when you're inexperienced, when you're out of practice, very easy to make this kind of mistake because my brain just isn't working great at isolating this material where it needs to be. This here wants to be a good bit wider, and it's not getting that way very fast. It also wants to be a good bit longer. I'm tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, and I don't know if this is going to be our final halberd. We might have to go ahead and start again and go about this a different way. Or we might adjust the design and make it a slightly more compact halberd. That's also a good way that we can approach this. I need to put more time into it. It's the end of our day here. The light outside is just glorious as that sun is starting to set. And so with that, we're going to circle back to you in the morning. And good morning! It's great to see you again. And now, of course, we're just continuing on with the video. I've had a night to sleep on this and think about it. I did not actually sleep on it. That would have been uncomfortable. And, you know, I think it's still worth a little bit of tweaking and a little bit more work to see if we could make a scaled-down halberd from what we have here. We're gonna have to start again. It looks like garbage. This is failure time right here. I think that I've about gone to the point of not being able to make a usable halberd from this piece of steel. I know the process that I was trying to use was not good enough. The amount of material that I chose to use was not good enough. So we got ourselves a a, 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 good pickle. That's a good way to do it. Instead of trying to forge this whole thing out of one monstrous piece of steel, I'm just gonna make it out of 2 pieces of steel, have a slot in here, and slip that in, rivet it together. This makes a ton of sense. You know, I'd considered the thought of forge welding a piece in, but we could just rivet it in. Flush rivets, it's gonna look nice and neat. It's gonna be a way more efficient use of material and time. And at the end of it, it might well still look pretty one-piece-y. Now I need not 1 piece of steel, but 2 pieces of steel. I need the forge hot again. And we are back at it. This hole turned out really ugly, so I just had to make up a drift so that we can drive it in and fix this ugly mess. There we go. That's looking awesome! Check it out, we've got ourselves a hole opened up. It's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Next step is for us to forge the taper of the point and for us to then flip it around and start working on our tang area. A beak forged out, a little pointy bit right at the tip. We have a hole. We just need to find our solution for how this is going to mount to a handle. Oh boy, no. Looking closer at the photo, I just worked out how these things were made. This is not going to be easy. This strapping that connects it to the handle is individually welded onto here. This strapping is stuck on to the material of the pole arm with a forge weld, and then the strapping comes out. That's tremendously difficult. Oh boy. Okay, so this area here, this is where it connects to the wood, and I thought it was just strapping on the side. It's not. If we were to cut this here, we would have a square wooden handle. There is then steel on all 4 sides of the wooden handle with rivets going the entire way through. That means that there is strapping like this on all 4 sides of the handle, which means that it needs to be welded all the way around, which is going to be really difficult. So I've spent some time laying this out on a piece of paper and thinking about it. I've worked out the plan. I've worked out the measurements of the steel that I need. We are going to be making 4 pieces of steel that are going to be cladding all 4 sides of our halberd kind of shafty area. I'm going to forge weld them on, hopefully not screw anything up. But to do all of this, I have to begin by making my own material because we don't have 1 5/8 inch wide flat bar. We have a very limited amount of steel in the steel rack. So good lesson. I should buy some more steel. But in the meantime, we can make our own. Here we go! dokie. This is a little 1 5/8 flat stock that I can begin working from. But alas, as I have a puppy to take care of, to exercise, and get exposed to the world. That's gonna be it for a day. Hope you guys have enjoyed coming along this beautiful, magnificent education and failure and fun of working on this halberd. It is just brilliant to be able to bring you along this whole process, regardless of whether we have a win or whether...
Hey, I just created a professional Wix site for my business. Let's check it out. Go to Wix.com. There are hundreds of beautiful templates. Choose one that fits your business the best. With Wix, everything is customizable. I'll start with my title and add a photo of my favorite bike. Cool. With Wix Stores, I manage my inventory, add new products, and track orders, all in one place. That's a game changer. Having Wix Chat is...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. It is brilliant to have you here. Fantastic to have you here, because the forge is hot. And even though we still need forged doors on this thing, we said we were going to make forged doors and we forgot about it about 6 months ago. Today's project is to make a French naval boarding axe. It's going to look a little bit like this. I'm excited to try some new techniques, some familiar techniques, and most of all, swing some hammers and have a good time. Before we jump in, put the steel in the fire, let's thank our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Eero. They make a phenomenal Wi-Fi solution, and if you go to Eero to 25, we have free overnight shipping. You can have it tomorrow. Let's get into the video. So here are our materials. We have a 3x1 by 3.5. That is 75 by 25 by about 82 millimeter long piece of mild steel. We also have this 1 3/8 or 35 millimeter W1 high carbon steel material. Much like when we made the Grim Reaper scythe the other day, we're going to be making the body of the tool out of mild steel, and the bit, the blade itself, is going to be high carbon steel. This is a similar way that they would have been made historically, except they would have had a wrought iron body, a high carbon edge. We're not going to do it the same way we made the side though, where we folded it. Instead, we're going to split it and insert the high carbon edge.
It's like you make a taco out of hot steel, and then you put your taco fillings in and forge weld your taco back together.
So let's put the material in the fire! Alrighty, so these are our parts. 1 piece of W1, thank you for grinding that wheel. 1 piece of mild steel, hot split down the middle. The next step is as follows. Mild steel piece is going in the forge. We're going to close it up to the point that we can force into it our W1 high carbon piece. We'll heat both up and forge weld them together. Hopefully this goes well. Hopefully we don't spit out that tapered piece of steel. It feels like that's exactly what would happen. Hopefully it sticks and it's just easy peasy lemon squeezy. We got ourselves a boarding axe. Let's go to the fire.
You're saying that the forge that we're about to forge weld something out of is hot?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
No.
Yes! Yes, please! Good! Good work! This is a tricky weld to make because it's trying to squish that piece out of there. You'll see in here, there's actually even a little bit of a hole from where it's not fully closed up. So hopefully as we forge it, it'll close up and get tight. But it's a worrying one. This is not an easy weld. I'm gonna take it to the power hammer. Let's see what the hammer does.
New Mentos Fresh Thyme Cherry Mint. The sweetness of cherry and the coolness of mint.
It might have gone well, it might have not gone well. I still don't like the way that looks inside there. I'm gonna take another 1 or 2 welding heats. Hopefully it closes up. If it does, we're then going to isolate the blade halves from the body and the spike and draw that material down. Okay folks, next step, we're gonna take this hammer eye punch and we are gonna punch open the hole. We have Will holding these pieces, which are acting as spacers to save bending it as we drift it. I'm going to drift a little bit from one side. I'm going to release it from the drift. Just like that. Flipping it over. And then we go back into the other side to open it up bit by bit. Okay, so here's where we're at. We have our hole opening up quite nicely. And we have a piece with a big fat end that needs to be a spike and a very non-blade looking section. As we go here, I'm going to be alternating from drifting open the cheeks to forging down the spikes to working on the blade, and hopefully little bit by little bit, without going too far too fast in any one place, we will end up with a perfectly sized eye, a nice spike, and a good looking fanned out blade. With that, the axe is done. Well, it's forged. It's not entirely done. Okay, so now that we've got that blade forged out and it's cooled down, I take this nice piece of American hickory here. I'm gonna cut it up into a handle.
The axe has cooled down. We've got the handle roughed out, and before we fit that up, we want to do some grinding on this bad boy, namely the main shaping of it, grind a curve into the blade, and then grind those transitions in here as well. The spike and the eye all looks really good, and this transition here on both sides all looks really, really nice. It's mainly the profile grinding that we're going to have to take care of. We're going to do some angle grinding. That'll be very fast. That'll be the fastest for getting this stuff out. Then we'll slap a 36 grip belt on the belt sander and get her done. So we got it all ground up. It's time to throw it in a Paragon heat treating oven for a little bit of heat to treat it. So while that's heating up, I figured I'd go over a little bit of the history of the boarding axe. These were a pretty popular and common tool on every big ship, basically from like the 1400s until kind of the late 1800s. These axes were stationed kind of at each cannon, basically, and so it was a weapon that they could use to first off fight off, you know, people who were boarding their ship. They could grab one and go jump onto the other ship, but then that spike on the back and the way that it's designed is you can use it to clear out fires and stuff like that. That spike you can grab like big logs, drag them out of the way, throw them off the ship, whatever. They're the grandfather to the modern day fire axe that you guys, it's a pretty common shape with that kind of spike on the back. That's enough of that for now. We'll let that thing heat up and we'll give it the old quench. Will did a great job grinding that piece up, getting it ready for heat treat, setting up the fume extractor, because the way we're gonna harden this blade is probably gonna cause a lot of smoke and fire and flashing. So I'm also gonna put a jacket on, some gloves and a face shield, and we're gonna harden it before we do a little tempering.
여행은 신나게 더 신나게 더 신나게 그리고 잊을 수
So we have that blade edge quenched. You see the martensite on it? Beautiful. But what we also have is we have a lot of residual heat in the piece. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scratch it up with a sanding disc. And we're gonna make the temper colors run all the way up from this hot section here to the edge so we can get it tempered. What I'm gonna do after this first temper is I'm gonna do a second temper cycle in the oven so we can get it very nicely stress relieved and toughened at that edge so it doesn't chip on us. You can see that light blue here is crawling up towards the edge. We just have to be patient and pay very close attention to not over temper. Got a pretty even straw on it. We're now gonna put it in the oven. After the temper, I gave it a wire brush. We put it back in the oil. It's looking phenomenal. All we have to do next is put the final edge on it and throw a handle in it.